Alright, let's do this. First Q&A on the YouTube channel. Super excited. Thanks everybody who sent in their questions. Yeah, let's just go over them one by one. So the first question is from Aquascape. And the question is, when did you begin with aquascaping and what was your biggest inspiration? Oof, when did I begin? It's a bit tricky because I had aquariums my entire life. And I think I sort of slowly made that transition into aquascaping. When I was still living at home, I had larger aquariums. And I was more into the dwarf cichlids. So I had a lot of South American cichlids, stuff like that. But then I moved to Amsterdam together with my girlfriend. And we got a really small studio. I didn't have space for a large aquarium. So I got a small nano cube. And I think that's how it sort of started. Of course I saw pictures from Takashi Amano. But I wasn't very into social media back then. I was more into the forums. So I signed up for UCAPS, the UK Aquatic Plant Society. And that's a beautiful forum. If you haven't seen it yet, you should definitely check it out. But I got a lot of knowledge from that forum. And of course, George Farmer was very active there. He wasn't that popular yet back then, but he was making amazing scapes already. So yeah, I think George Farmer was my biggest inspiration for sure. Yeah, I got into aquascaping. I think that was 5 years ago that I was really started being serious about aquascaping, and yeah, 5 years ago. Well, let's continue. Next question is from Mila Leyland. Any tips for people who have a low budget but want a nice tank? Yeah, I have tips for that. Equipment wise, if you're buying an aquarium, just go for the regular float glass. Don't go opti-white, it's too expensive. Light, maybe a flute light. You can buy those on Amazon for really cheap. If you just buy something that's in the range of 6500 to 8000 Kelvin, it's good for plants. It's one of those flat LED lights, just one LED, it's just very bright. I think they also use it for construction. Yeah, those are really cheap but really powerful. Filter, I would say, yeah, go for an internal filter instead of external. External can be a little bit more expensive, then you need lily pipes as well. Go for an internal filter and just hide it with a big plant or a big rock or just hardscape. Yeah, here in the Netherlands we have a lot of like apps and Facebook pages where people sell their second-hand stuff. Same for aquarium stuff. You can, here in the Netherlands, you can easily buy a second-hand aquarium or a second-hand light or a second-hand filter. Maybe you have that in your country as well. And look for other aquascaping hobbyists that are maybe in your area, or they can send you some plants by post. Or you could start a Instagram channel, get some sponsored products. That works as well. So I hope that helps. Okay, next question comes from That Dirty Tank. How do you control DIY CO2? This is a very difficult question. It's not difficult, but it's difficult to control DIY CO2. When we're talking about DIY CO2, I'm talking about the sugar and yeast method. That's what I use in my aquariums. So to control it, sort of a little bit, I add gelatin to the sugar mix. That slows everything down a little bit. But let's say you want more CO2 bubbles per second, I guess. What you can do is you can shake the bottle. This will stir up the yeast, then they will start working a little bit harder, so you will get a little bit more bubbles. So shake the bottle is one option to control it. What else can you do? It's very sensitive to temperature, I guess. So if you want more CO2 or you want less CO2, then you need to either bring up or reduce the temperature. So you could place the CO2 bottles in a bucket with a little bit of warm water to increase the CO2. Or what else can you do? Yeah, I think you can also just sort of play with the amount of yeast that you add initially. I think the more yeast you add from the beginning, the more CO2 you will get. But yeah, it's very difficult to really control DIY CO2. I guess if you're afraid that you're not adding enough CO2, then you can always add another bottle. So you can make these DIY systems as large as possible. You can add 3 bottles, 4 bottles, just make sure they're all connected to each other. If you're afraid you have too much CO2, then you can always increase the surface agitation of your filter, and that way you'll add plenty of CO2, but you'll also add enough oxygen to make sure you don't kill your fish. I guess that's the best thing I can do for you here. Next question is from Gayi88. How to remove the fish eggs from the Aquascape aquarium? It made my tank dirty. How to remove fish eggs? Well, that really depends on what kind of fish we're talking about here. Let's say if it were cichlids, they usually lay eggs on a stone or on a leaf. So you can always remove the stone or remove the leaf. If it was a betta fish, for example, they always make a bubble nest. That's going to be a bit difficult to remove, I think. I don't think you should even remove that. So I'm not sure what fish you're talking about here. I'm gonna send you a DM on Instagram, and then we can talk about what kind of fish it is and how you should remove it best. Because there's a lot of different ways for different fish. Let's go to the next question. Don't forget the coffee. Okay, next question is from Chernobyl Lake Mermaid. That's a very creative name. Could you recommend a basic startup? A basic startup? Do you mean a basic setup? If so, I really recommend the aquariums from Daphnia, because they always come with a complete package with a filter included, a light included. If you have the complete setup, then they also include some soil or substrate, plant fertilizer. Maybe you can look into that, the Daphnia cubes. If you really mean a startup, then I think you should look into the app from Tropica, the 90 days app. This helps you to start up your aquarium in 90 days. It's a really good app, tells you when to do water changes and when to add fertilizer, stuff like that. Next question is from Dutch Scaper. What is your favorite stemplant? Favorite stemplant? I think it was Rotala Atra, but oh man, it's difficult. I love stemplants. Right now I also really like the Myriophyllum Guyana. It's a really small, delicate stemplant. Or the Rotala Wallichi. Yeah, I think I'm gonna go with Myriophyllum Guyana. That's my new favorite stemplant. Yeah. Next. Next question is from Aryun LFC8. Is DIY CO2 a good option? Okay, we already talked a little bit about DIY CO2. I think it's a good option if you are on a low budget. I had DIY CO2 on all of my aquariums up until a few months ago. Right now I still have this one is on DIY CO2 and the one on the bottom as well. So right now I have 2 aquariums on DIY CO2. So yeah, I think it's a good option. I like it, mostly just because it's very cheap. But like we talked about before, it can be unstable. It's hard to regulate. I'll leave the link to my DIY CO2 video on the top here. Check that out. It shows you how you can make a DIY system from scratch. Yeah, that's it. Oh, this one is nice. Next question from Planted Element. If you could scape with one other professional aquascaper, who would you choose? One other professional aquascaper. Yeah, I think I'm gonna go with Josh Sim. I think Josh Sim. Yeah, I would like to work with Josh. I think the things that he makes, it's on another level. Yeah, Josh Sim. Next. Question from Jassi29. How long does a planted tank last? Do we have to change the soil and substrate eventually? I think a planted tank can last for many years. The soil will eventually lose most of its nutrients, but we can always add more nutrients in the form of root taps. So yeah, I think a planted tank can last for, I don't know, many years. I know that there are some aquascapes at the ADA gallery that have been there for a really long time. Yeah, we usually just want to try something new, or we want to try a new layout, so we usually rescape after a half a year or a year. But I think you can go for as long as you want if you just keep trimming your plants regularly. Yeah, I'm thinking about the aquarium in Mr. Takashi Shimano's home, the famous aquascape there. I mean, that's been in his home for like 15 years. And I don't think that they ever rescaped that. So let's say 15 years. Yeah, why not? If you just make sure you keep up your maintenance, if you make sure you add nutrients back into the soil, I think you can go for a really long time. Oh, good question. Good question. Okay, this is a very difficult name. It's a question from Zara Davariu. Okay. Thank you for your work. It's so inspired. And question, what is your first tank or first pet? My first pet. My first pet was a fish, for sure. So yeah, my father, he basically got me into the aquarium hobby. He already had aquariums before I was born. And I think, if I remember correctly, that he built an aquarium for me on my bedroom. It's actually quite a large aquarium. I think it was 80 centimeters or 1 meter. That was my first aquarium. And I think he just gave me some of his baby cichlids or whatever, so yeah. My first pet was definitely a fish. Okay, next question is from Michiel Beunk. Hope I say that correctly. How long is the light on your aquariums? My light is on. It's not the same for every aquarium. And it's not the same every day actually. I'm a bit all over the place. But usually they all go on at around 12 o'clock in the afternoon. And they stay on until like 9-ish. So let's say 9 hours, sometimes even 10. Yeah. So between 8 to 10 hours. Depends a little bit on my mood. If I want to look at them a little bit longer, I'll just keep the light on for longer. But in general, 8 to 10 hours. Okay, so the next question is from Fish Tank Professor. Whatever brought you into the hobby? Yeah, like I already said before, my dad, I guess, he already had aquariums before I was born. Actually, I'll see if I can find a picture where I was like 1 year old, sitting on his lap and we're staring at his amazing aquarium. So yeah, growing up I had aquariums all around me, so there was no way for me to not get into the hobby, I guess. Next one comes from Aquascaping Gran Canaria. Do you know how to look after live Daphnias? It's actually it's not easy, but Daphnias, they like to feed off algae. So you need to grow algae. And I think the best way you can do this, if you just take an empty aquarium or an empty glass container, place it outside or place it in the sun where it gets a lot of sunlight, and yeah, just grow algae. So you can add some fish food to the aquarium and let it rot away, and then you will probably get some algae. And then once you have algae, you can add your Daphnia, and they will feed off the algae and start multiplying. But you need to make sure you have a constant source of algae for them to feed on. So if you can grow algae, you can grow Daphnia as well. And next question comes from... Oh, we have another question from Zara Davakvariu. Maybe one more question. What is the biggest problem you have with some aquariums? Biggest problem? I didn't really have a lot of problems with aquariums. Never had an aquarium leak or break, I think. Knock on wood. Yeah, of course the usual algae issues. Maybe once in a while a dead fish or shrimp that has jumped out. Oh wait, I have something. A couple months ago I was collecting reverse osmosis water. So I have a reverse osmosis system in my kitchen, and this takes a lot of time to create that filtered water. So you need to collect it in a bucket or a small jerry can. So that was what I was doing. But because it takes a long time, I kind of forgot about it. So the water kept running and I just didn't pay attention to it. So I think the entire kitchen floor was wet, and I live on the second floor above a pizzeria. So our downstairs neighbors, they had some water damage on the roof. They had to replace some panels. It was nothing too major, but definitely made my heart bump a little bit faster for a little bit. So yeah, that's it. My biggest problem with aquascaping. Alright, let's continue. Next question comes from scape. Favorite plant? Okay, we already discussed my favorite stem plant. Favorite plant? Bucephalandra. For sure, Bucephalandra. Which one though? No wait, actually, can I still change that? I'm going to change it for Hygrophila pinnativida. I think that's my favorite. It's a favorite plant. I'm still trying to get it very red, like you see some of the ADA scapes. Yeah. My favorite plant is Hygrophila pinnativida. But this can change in a week. So ask me again in a week. Next question comes from Haris Salamat. My aquarium water is clear, but there is a yellow tint no wood, etc. and how to fix the tint. So your aquarium water is yellow, but you don't have any driftwood that's leaching tannins. Did somebody pee in your aquarium? That's disgusting. Oh, okay, so be serious. You have a yellow tint in your aquarium, but there's no wood. Is it your light maybe? Do you have a light with a very warm yellowish tint? No, sorry, I honestly have no idea what could be the problem. No. Let me know if you do find the reason, because I'm actually curious what it could be. If you don't have any wood, but you do have yellow aquarium water. Strange. Let me know what it is. Okay, next. Next question from unsophisticated. Unsophisticated. I like that one. Death match 2 angelfish versus 3 pearl gouramis. Who would win? 2 angelfish versus 3 pearl gouramis. So the angelfish are outnumbered, but they're probably bigger than the pearl gouramis. I'd say pearl gouramis, 3 versus 2. Angelfish are pretty, but they are slow and they're big, so they're an easy target. Pearl gouramis will win. Okay, so I think that was all the questions from Instagram, and we had a few more questions on YouTube. Okay, still 4 questions left from YouTube. First one comes from Spirit. What's the first fish you ever kept? Do you have any other hobbies besides aquascaping, fish keeping, and how old are you? 3 questions. Okay. First fish I ever kept. Yeah, so I had aquariums already when I was a kid, and my father, he was really into Central American cichlids. So I think he always gave me his hand-me-downs, you know, so I always had some of his leftovers. So yeah, my first fish were for sure Central American cichlids. I do remember that when I was a kid, I was a big fan of the convex cichlid. I think that's what they called. The white fish with the black stripes. I'll put a picture on the screen right now. Maybe one of those were my first. What else did you ask? Do you have any other hobbies besides aquascaping, fish keeping? I think weightlifting. Yeah, fitness. I like fitness. I go to the gym 6 days a week now. So weightlifting is another hobby. I do love cooking. Cooking is my profession. I work as a chef. Cooking is also, it's a bit of a hobby. So fish keeping, aquascaping, weightlifting, cooking. How old are you? I am 30. I just turned 30 last May. Born in 1990. 30 years old. Next, we have some questions from Marilia Viana. I know you've been a long time subscriber. Marilia is asking, what is your dream fish to keep? And one type or specific fish you'd never get. How many languages do you speak? Okay, first, what is your dream fish to keep? Dream fish. I never think about these things. I'm still looking for a female Badis. Those are like, I think they're sort of in the Bermuda Triangle. I ever only have males. A female Badis or female Dario. I'd like to keep that. Anything else? Yeah, there's a lot of fishes that I would still like to keep. I like there's some really rare types of Otocinclus. The Otocinclus cocoma, I think it's called. And Otocinclus peru. really small autosynclus, but they're really difficult to keep. They really have a hard time getting used to reg. So yeah, maybe a strange pick, but I think I'm gonna go with the autosynclus Peru. I think that's what it's called actually. I'll see if I can put a picture on the screen. One type or specific fish you'd never get. I would never get. I just don't like fish that are like genetically modified, you know, like glowfish, for example, the fish that like glow in the dark, something like that. I would never keep. But also the the German blue ram cichlid. They also have this balloon type shape that they breed. I really hate that. Fish that are just bred to be a different shape than they actually originally are. Yeah. So if I had to choose one, glowfish for sure. How many languages do you speak? Not a lot actually. So I speak Dutch, of course. Dutch is my native language. I speak English. German is like very little. I speak a little bit of German. My girlfriend is Ukrainian, so I do speak a little bit of Ukrainian. Yeah, that's it. Dutch, English, German, Ukrainian. 4. Okay, 2 questions left. Next one comes from Juan Jose Aguilar. What do you think about par of LED lights for aquascapes? I saw videos where depending on the par score it gets classified as low, mid or high. And is the RGB lights so necessary to get very intense red colors of plants, or just 6500 Kelvin, very intense light? Of course all combined with good column of nutrients. Well, what do you think about it? Okay, very long question, let's break them down. What do you think about par of LED lights? Par, I think it's too complicated. A lot of light manufacturers, they don't specify par readings. So if you want to know the power of your LED light, then you need to get this expensive measuring equipment. So I just think it's too complicated because it depends on the depth of the parameter. Yeah, I just like to follow the rules of lumens per liter. So if you want to have easy plants, then you need to have 20 lumens per liter. If you want to grow medium plants, then you need 30 lumens per liter. And if you want to grow difficult plants, you need to have preferably more than 40 lumens per liter. Yeah, par is just too complicated. Is the RGB in light so necessary to get very intense red colors on the plants? RGB, is that necessary? Is RGB necessary to get red plants? No, not at all. Not at all actually. Yeah, you need to have bright light. It doesn't really matter if it's RGB or if it's just white LEDs, as long as it's just really bright. But the main thing to get really red plants, of course it depends a little bit on the plants, but I think you're talking about rotalas, and you have to make sure that you get really red rotalas. Of course you need bright light, but the most important is to have very low nitrate levels, So I tried this not too long ago, where I just completely stopped dosing nitrogen into my aquariums, and yeah, the rotalas definitely got very bright red. So that in combination with bright light, you will get a lot of red plants. But for example, this doesn't work for Alternantera. They just need a very balanced nutrients, a lot of iron, and bright light as well. If you want to get red otalas, then yeah, low nitrates. What else do you ask? Oh, that was it. Just 2 questions. By the way, your escapes and videos are awesome. Thanks a lot, man. Appreciate it. And the last question comes from TS. Why are aquascape lights usually white instead of the pink color in professional greenhouses? Well, nobody wants to look at a pink aquarium, I think. So in a greenhouse, it's all about growing plants as fast as possible. And I think pink is I guess the right spectrum for those plants. Maybe aquatic plants will grow with pink light as well, but nobody wants to look at a pink aquarium. I think that's it. I don't see any other reason why it would be like that. So I think that's it, guys. I think we've answered all the questions. If you have more questions, you can drop them in the comments here. Send me a DM on Instagram at Aquascaping Amsterdam. If you're not happy with your answer, you can send me a message as well. Let me know, guys, what you think of these Q&As. Should we do more of them? Should we do them every month? Maybe that's a nice idea. Yeah, I'm gonna sign off now. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a great day, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye.